So just, I gave a little personal background, but, really to kind of speak more to the company and what we've done in the space in the last several years. So, we're involved in close to anywhere from 1,300 to 1,500 deals a year. And I'm on like 90% of those calls. If you do the math, that's a lot of calls. Because each deal obviously is not one call. It could be 3 calls, 4 calls, it depends on how far into the deal cycle that we are, or where we're brought in. So, 1,000+ deals a year, every year. That's about half of that's financial services. The rest is kind of split out through retail, some HLS, and then some others kind of like general industries. But, bottom line is we're on, over the last 5 or 6 years, I've personally taken thousands of calls. We've seen, how deals work for every type of deal you can imagine, primarily all in small business. So, right where you guys are, where you're sitting, the deals you work on, that's what we're, dealing with day to day. So again, we're dealing with thousands of these. So we're seeing the success in the deal cycle. We're seeing what AEs are doing well and maybe where they could improve. We're seeing where partner engagement is strong. We're seeing, close rates, and really, we're running all the numbers. We're able to kind of see this firsthand. I think I've been really filling in the front lines of most of that. Definitely have a lot to share there. As a team, so over 30 certified specialists on our team. We work primarily, the New York office is really great for us. We have a lot of great relationships here. We work a lot in California office, Irvine, San Francisco, Chicago, Atlanta, a little bit in Toronto, and then just some kind of, a few people in Colorado, some people down in Dallas. But New York is one of our biggest hubs for sure. We work with some really great relationships with the teams. A couple other just key points about us, and then I probably won't talk about us at all because I'm just not a fan of that in general. But we're closing about 50% of deals. So again, just to give you a sense of close rate on deals partners have brought in. I don't know, what other partner close rates would look like. Ours is about 50%. So if we're engaged in a deal, 50% chance that that deal closes, and that's across the last 3 years. It's very consistent. If we look year to year, month to month, we're between 49 and 51% always. Our resources are onshore, so all of our project management resources 100% onshore. 90% of our total resources are onshore, so the only offshore resources are some development resources that aren't client facing. And then we also don't have any red accounts. So there's obviously always potential for CSAT issues, like client wants to see this, client's not happy with that, but those are addressed, those are dealt with. And Maggie's here with me today is deals with anything related to, if there is a CSAT issue or question in any account, that's been her role, and it's been a great addition to our team, having somebody that purely is there to make sure every client's happy at every project. And we always get over any issues there are. To that point, we haven't had any red accounts. So we are like, there's nothing, our partner manager has never talked to us about any accounts there have been issues with that have been escalated to the point of attrition or cancellation. So, we really want to make projects work. And again, that's an important thing that we want to look for in a partner. So that is enough about us. I will not talk about us anymore. General background, actually, I didn't even know this existed. Salesforce on their website has a whole page about the partner ecosystem. So I just found this when I was putting the slides together. But basically, I pointed out a couple of stats I thought were pretty awesome. So I wanted to share them today. So 70% of implementations. So what this is saying is 70% of all implementations of Salesforce are done by Salesforce partners. And there's over 132,000 certified credentialed experts. So there's roughly, I think, 3,000 or 4,000 partners that you can see in the App Exchange. But then there's obviously thousands of people that work for some of the bigger ones, dozens or hundreds of people that work for the smaller ones. The 70% of implementations are done by someone within the partner network. 9 out of 10 customers are relying on apps or partners, so they're leveraging other tools, whether it's an ISV partner or a consulting partner. 9 out of 10 Salesforce customers are leveraging partners in some way. And then the ecosystem is going to grow by nearly 6 times by 2026. So again, these were new stats to me when I was researching and pulling stuff together. I thought they were really great and eye-opening stats to understand the value of the partner ecosystem, that Salesforce does it differently. Chet pointed it out, not all software vendors have a partner network or require some type of partner to come in and help. Salesforce is completely dependent on that for the success of their clients. And I think that's a differentiator and something that's really important.
Real quick on that, Gil, sorry, I'll stand at the front of the room, Skill, and have to compare next. I just wanted to double click on that point. So For those that haven't had this come up yet, you're gonna have some clients, not push back on it, but they might think this is a little bit odd, right? Because we talked about before, anybody who's sold software to other companies. A lot of companies either don't require implementation or they just do it in-house, right? So Phil mentioned it's like a little bit unique, right? The reason why we do that, for folks that don't know, is from an investment standpoint, Salesforce is always reinvesting in their own technologies, right? So they, at the Mark Benioff level, they've made a decision for years that the R&D budget goes back into technology, and they outsource a lot of the implementation, right? We do have in-house implementation services. People ask this, like, I've heard me use this line a lot. We have an in-house implementation team that starts at $250,000, and they don't really understand small businesses. So if you frame it like that, it's like, if you want to pay $250,000 to somebody who doesn't really understand the business well, or do you want to pay something that works in your budget from working with this partner who's done hundreds of these implementations, right? So if you frame it like that, it becomes a little bit more of a value add and not something that's in conflict with our sales motion at all, right? So it's actually something that's pretty cool and why we do it. And Gil will get into this a little bit as well, but especially for those of us that are new in our sales career, right? Gil and other partners have a really strong point of view within a given sub-vertical because they've done it so much, right? So somebody like Gil can say, hey, this is what we see in lending law. This is what we see in insurance. This is what's going to work well, right? So if you leverage a partner in the right way, it's actually a very, very powerful system.
I think too, it's, to Chet's point, it's how you position it. In some cases, like I've had very candid conversations with clients to say, Salesforce doesn't get a kickback. We don't get a kickback. There's nothing contractual between Salesforce and partners. So if a client ever feels like you're bringing in a partner because someone has some vested interest, there's not. And I think that's important because, and I'll talk about this, HubSpot is a good example. HubSpot does revenue share with their partners. So if you're a HubSpot partner and you're part of a deal, you actually get paid out on that deal from HubSpot in perpetuity on the contract. So there's a vested interest and it kind of clouds the vision of the partner because there's a reason they're pushing so hard to get a deal closed. With us, like, yes, we want to build a relationship, so we're going to help close the deal. But clients, on some level, if they push back, need to understand, like, you don't have to use a partner. The partner doesn't get anything from us as a kickback. We don't get anything from the partner. We just see higher success rates. And I think even some of these stats, like 70% of our clients use partners. 90% of our clients are using some type of partner, whether it's ISV or consulting. When you can frame it in a way that it's only there to help you and we don't benefit from it at all, because the more you're successful, the more we all grow. I think that's, it's a really good value proposition.
That's a super, go ahead, sorry.
Is that a question?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, like, Gil, I think it's a super value add there, right? Like, there's nothing in it for you. We want to build a relationship. Customers don't just necessarily come to us in the vested interest to just buy software. This is like, if you're newer, right, and you're playing this game and you're trying to build that kind of ecosystem of the right partner to bring into the right conversation at the right time, it allows the consultative approach of really showing like the true value of what you can do as a seller, but also what the partner can really do. And it gives that an agnostic approach of, hey, we're not tied to a contract. We don't get paid out on working with Salesforce. We want to drive the value forward for you and grow, to Gil's point. So just think about it from a consultative standpoint is really kind of the point I'm making.
I thought you were God for a second because I heard a voice from the sky, so that's why I was confused. But
I am God, thank you.
So let's talk about the value of a good partner. So for the account executive, for you guys, what do you think when, and I know you're newer to the experience, but what is the value to you of a partner? What comes to mind?
Painting the picture for the client.
And the picture, what else?
Kind of like ease of mind. So especially if you have a good reputation, I know it just helps me feel stronger in my pitch to know that after handoff that it's going to be in good hands.
They're not going at it alone. You're not going at it alone.
Yeah.
Yep. What else?
So sure, how the account moving forward, if they're well implemented, they're gonna want
Totally.
to use it more effectively.
Yep. Anything else?
Think of like specific sub-verticals, like being able to speak the language of the clients is very common for them.
So my opinion is you guys have the hardest job in Fins because you're learning the Salesforce way and then learning financial services and all this stuff. As a partner, there is no harder language to speak in the Salesforce ecosystem and small business than financial services, in my opinion. It is so hard to understand like wealth manager versus lender versus insurance company, and then all the competing platforms and OEMs and, you know, integrations. I mean, there's a lot to know. So you're kind of up against, I need to learn my accounts. I'm in this environment where, you know, I'm in a producing role, and I really have to know those sub verticals. I think to the point of, you know, having a partner, and Chet touched on it as well. When we know the sub verticals, we can cover that piece for you, so you don't have to feel like there's going to be a gap on those calls. Someone can kind of step in and fill in those gaps.
I think, sorry to keep derailing your.
That's okay. No, it's good.
But, like kind of a life hack for me, I learned this like way too late in my AE career, is, you know, leverage a partner like a solutions engineer or like an industry expert, right? Like I mean, it happens to me multiple times. Dan, maybe this is more about the leader than you as a partner. But like A's will be like, tell me about this system. I think I don't know how to skill, right? Or A's will want to know, you know, what is it like particular use case within insurance, right? Or those things. It was such a huge life hack for me when I learned I can just go to a partner for those things. And also if you're somebody, again, if you're struggling a little bit learning the sub verticals, there's no use case that a partner has in mind. Just, you know, form a relationship with the partner and get them to hop on an intro call with you, right? Like it's mutually beneficial, right? It doesn't always have to be, go get this on a little bit in terms of like when I can bring a partner in. It doesn't always have to be like bringing a deal to a partner on a silver platter, right? Like sometimes it can be early stages. Sometimes you can make an ask, hey, like I need an industry expert for an initial discovery call.
I would love deals in a silver platter. The reality is it rarely happens. We have to work. I almost feel guilty if I don't have to work for a deal. So I'm like, what happened? Why am I not working for this deal? It doesn't happen often. We have to work for the deal, and that's fine. And that's, you know, if we didn't, we don't have any value. So then why are we here? You know? So, and we touched upon this, but you just to kind of recap. So co-selling, right? We can co-sell. Not all partners can co-sell. I love co-selling. And there've been many deals that we've actually taken conversation offline with the client because the client really wanted to talk to us separate from that sales conversation. And then we were able to help close the deal. So huge fan of co-selling personally, but you need to understand if your partner you're working with likes to co-sell, if they're good at it, you don't want them to impact the deal. You also want to be clear if that's the role you want your partner to play. Because I've also been on deals where AEs are very clear, like just you're kind of in the background. And even though I feel like there's value we could provide, we respect that, you know, whatever that AE is looking for in that role. So co-selling is big, but you want to be clear if that's what you're looking for. Sharing client stories of similar projects. Again, you know, these are, as we go through, these are things that SEs can't provide. So they can provide some technical resources on answering questions, but, you know, they're not going to be able to always share exact stories where other clients have seen success in this type of environment. Providing unbiased third-party feedback, like technically, even though we're on the deal, we make it clear that whether they buy or not, the licensing doesn't impact us. So, I mean, we're technically unbiased, even though we're slightly to moderately biased. And then designing the right product mix. This is where an SE can help, but this is an area that we can also kind of make sure we get a picture that we have the right products. So similarly, value of a good partner for a client. So thoughts on how are we helping clients? Obviously, we're implementing, but what else do you feel like partners are bringing to the client relationship?
The references, Gil.
References?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get on that a little bit.
So references being like point of view of other similar types of projects you talking
Yeah,
about?
let's say we can't get the scenario, because this happens all the time, right? Like you guys are going to run into a deal cycle where customers like last minute, hey, I need 3 or 4 customers I need to speak with in the industry that are doing something specifically to what we're doing, right? So we can't necessarily get those right at the flip of a switch. That's where we kind of lean on you as the partner to help us. So that's kind of the scenario that I would like you to walk through if you could.
Yeah, so client references are a tricky one. I'm glad you brought that up, Mike. So it's tricky because a lot of, especially in financial services, a lot of clients aren't going to talk, like they're not going to talk to competing clients. And like in some of the, specifically, we see it in like some of the lending space and some in wealth. People are kind of like, we're under NDA, we can't use references. The other thing to keep in mind is as a partner, if I'm working with like 1,000 reps on 1,300 deals, it's hard for us to constantly have references. So we're very selective on references. Other partners may be a little bit different. We are very selective. We generally will push back unless it's the deciding factor. So if someone comes to us and says, this deal will close, everything else checks the boxes, the deal will close if we have a reference. Okay, great, we'll look for a reference. Anything outside of that, we won't pull in a reference because technically we're burning a reference that could be used to close the deal. We had one happen, I forgot what deal it was, but we provided a reference and the client just went, and the reference was a great reference. The deal just went dark entirely. Like, it's just, we're asking a big favor for some of our clients to do this. When the deals go dark, it's just not a good look on us. So it is important to have that conversation, ask for references, but at the same time, you want to know that that's what's going to tip the deal over the edge. And it needs to be a deal that's worth it. I mean, in some of these small deals, it's hard to reference for as well. As far as the client, it's, working with the client, like if we think of how we're benefiting the client directly, right, faster ROI, client's going to stumble through trying to figure out how to use this thing for weeks or months and still not really know how to use it, right? So faster ROI, let's get them up and running in a way that's going to work for their business. Even if they say, oh, I don't want to wait 4 weeks. Well, you don't have to. You can log into the system tomorrow. But in terms of building out the system that's going to work for your business, we have a faster path to ROI by having a partner involved, right? Higher adoption rates, things like training and really simplifying the system to improve adoption. So again, if someone tries to implement themselves, they're not implementing based on best practice, and now their team doesn't want to use the system. And we've all heard this, like, oh, we implemented this software and no one's using it now and it's sitting there. Or we tried a CRM and no one's entering data, so the system doesn't really work for us. These are things that we really want to avoid because obviously we're maximizing our investment by having everybody in the team use it. So higher adoption is important. Less frustration. So clients do get frustrated because they feel like I keep reading these trailheads, I still can't figure it out. And even though they're frustrated with their own lack of knowledge on the technology, that frustration is going to come out to you as an AE and the deal that you had them sign. So it's going to be your fault that they can't figure it out ultimately because they're going to get frustrated trying to figure out how to use the system. Ability to map business process and identify areas for improvement. So this goes back to the point of we've seen so many use cases and how so many people are using the system. We're going to listen and identify what your business processes are today, and then how do we apply that to Salesforce. So again, a partner is going to bring that perspective of we've done this before. We've worked with other businesses like yours. We're going to bring that perspective to the relationship. And then reviewing the whole tech stack. So we're not just looking at this from a perspective of this is just Salesforce. We're looking at it from the perspective of what else are you using? Where else are the main efficiencies? And how else can we actually optimize your processes? And again, that's what a partner's going to bring to the conversation. Any questions or thoughts on that? Anything else? Yeah, sure.
So how do you build trust with a customer that had a bad experience with a different partner?
That's a great question. So first of all, it starts with the relationship with the AE, right? So here's the challenge. If you brought in the first partner and it was bad,
right?
Is that the question? Okay. That's different, right? Because then now you're kind of on the hot seat and then the partner's kind of behind that. So I think it needs to be, if you're not the one who brought in the bad partner, it's like, look, there's thousands of partners in the ecosystem, just like there's thousands of contractors that are going to fix your house. Like every industry has lots of people that do this stuff. I only work with certified vetted partners in our network. I only work with partners that have a proven track record within our teams. And those partners don't benefit, from the relationship other than they do a good job. My clients are happy. That's the relationship. So it paints a picture of with anything you do in life, there's always going to be lots of, it's the bad auto repair experience. When you compare it to the things that people are used to, kind of puts them in the frame of mind of like, all right, yes, I get it. They're bad and everything. But then you go back to like these are vetted, certified partners that have done thousands of these, and they only work with small business, and they only work with companies that do similar things as yours. At least it paints a good picture. Then as a partner, we have to come in and obviously kind of just like double down on that, reiterate. And I think sometimes too, we've had relationships we've started really slowly, and said, look, don't come out and spend, $5,000, $10,000, whatever. Just buy a small block of hours, spend a little bit of money, let us prove some value, and then we can sign on for a bigger relationship. So we have ways to start the relationship in a much slower, like more controlled environment where the client doesn't feel like we're asking them to throw a bunch of money into a black hole. The other thing as a partner is we'll listen to what those experiences were. So the challenge is that I almost always will side on the partner side because I know how hard it is being a partner. And sometimes clients' complaints are just based on their own inability to spend the time that's needed or provide the resources that are needed. So I had a client once, I'll never forget this. This is actually out of this office, it was a real estate client. I forgot whose account it was. But basically the client was like, Dash, they had 3 other partners and they didn't like any of them. And I literally came out and said, if I'm the 4th partner, there's a good chance you're going to be on a 5th, right? There's a problem. There's something that's happening that's causing you to go through these partners. And I'm not trying to point blame, but you need to step back and really make sure you understand what's going on to the relationship and make it work. And had a very candid conversation because it's a red flag when somebody's been through more than 1 or 2 partners before. And I was very open about it. And I have no problem having very candid and somewhat uncomfortable conversations. We ended up having a great relationship with the client after. But sometimes as a partner, you have to step back and say, look, if we're going to be your 2nd or 3rd, it's like, if I'm like married 4 times, then maybe I'm the problem, right? So that's something that, you need to take away from this relationship. I've only been married once. I still am. So how to select a partner? So again, lots of partners in the ecosystem. So, really you want to think through how to, like, what partner you're selecting. So there are some people that we work with. There are some people that other partners work with that they're the go-to for whatever, because there's a comfort level there. To us, it's very relationship based. There are situations where it's more transactional, like this partner I don't like working with, but they have this use case that fits. So I'm going to bring them in. It's more of a transaction because they're a fit. In general, there's a relationship and a comfort level. So if I'm working with someone on the team or someone on the team work with any partner, and they have that rapport, they know how to kind of feed off each other on calls, that's going to really help. So obviously you're going to find that comfort with certain partners, but in general, you don't want to just take a chance on a partner that no one else has used. Like, it's less of an issue now, but years ago, I was telling Maggie earlier, partners used to just come in the office, find their way in. That's why there's more security now, but you could literally find your way into an office, sit in an empty desk behind it, like a team, and just listen and be like, oh, you need a partner for that deal? And that's what partners used to do. It was obnoxious. And like no one sponsored them into the office. And then it got to the point where they put in such restrictions where like we couldn't go to the bathroom without someone literally walking us to the bathroom. Thankfully, Chet didn't have to walk to the bathroom. This is like 3 or 4 years ago where
I
like,
took that job so seriously, I didn't let you in before.
thanks.
Sorry about that.
So, well, the door opened and I was like, I looked at Maggie and I'm like, it's open really wide. The guy who opened it was still there. I'm like, I'm not going to chance it. I'm going to wait. So point being, like, don't just go to the app exchange. Don't just find a partner that just happened to stumble in or a partner that sends marketing. Like, I know you guys probably, some people I talk to get bombarded with stuff from partners. There's such a strong referral network from the teams. There's no need to just try a random partner to say flyer. You're always going to find a partner that's going to fit your needs, whether it's cost or experience or whatever, just by asking around. So, my opinion is, talk to leadership, talk to others in the team, post in the Slack channels. You'll always get someone's experience versus just having that, I guess, the one pager, the LinkedIn message, someone that just happened to pop in. Those are things you want to stay away from typically. Not that you couldn't have a good experience, because how did we get in the door the first time? Someone had to take a chance on us, and I get that. But the partner network is so strong that it's really just asking, your peers.
I'd also just add to that, like, if you're unsure if something is fit for a given partner, just ask them if it's a fit for them, right? It's like we're all kind of on the same team for the most part. It's like that's happened with Gil and I before, where bringing the deal or some sort of project, but that's like a little bit out of scope for probably like what the core competency is, right? You get some bad apples for sure, but for the most part, like partners don't want to sign on to a project that they can't deliver on, right? Because then it, we're talking about clawbacks and like legal stuff and it's a nightmare, right? So if you're unsure, just ask. That probably sounds really obvious to most folks, but these are all mistakes that I made.
Well, I think, to Chet's point, there are deals that have a certain product mix that may not be the ideal product mix for a partner, or a size of project or integrations. I mean, there's a lot of variables there. So asking the partner helps. I think partners are most of the time going to say yes, even if it's like kind of out of their comfort zone. We definitely had deals turned down. I'm sure other partners do it. But it's always worth asking and then talking through what their comfort level is. It's funny because like if I'm working with somebody new and they're like, oh, are you comfortable with Pardot? I'm like, that's probably like we do thousands of those. That's how we started. Like you don't know because it's a new relationship. So ask those questions because you may have thought, oh, now I have to go find another partner that I heard does Pardot versus just asking us the question. So I think it is a good point to ask the question for sure, and just to get an understanding of where else the partner's from. And then, we touched on this, but like client size and cost sensitivity. I mean, we get brought in a lot of low cost deals, but we don't want to just be brought in low cost deals because obviously there's no margin there, right? So we want to be brought in on bigger deals. But what's good is we build relationships showing the team that we'll help you on a 2K deal. That's fine. But hey, like when the 20K deal is there, we love that one too. But not all partners are there. So some partners will say, we don't do bigger projects. And then a lot of partners will say our smallest project is X. And you really want to understand that because that's their business model, right? And you don't want to challenge that. It's like, all right, that's where you guys start. I respect that. And, you kind of look elsewhere. And then make sure the fit across the client, which I touched on, but make sure the product fits the client. Any questions? Any more questions at this point? Yeah.
I have a quick question. So you said, sometimes you pick a partner because, like that's their niche or that's what they're really good at. What would you say IMG's kind of like special touches?
Nothing about us. I think the hands-on approach to small business in general is what has made us a lot different. So not a lot of partners have founders on their calls, and the ones that do are like smaller, right? So when I look at the space and say this, like us as a partner, the size we are, and still like I'm still on 90% of these calls, like that's kind of rare in the space. And to me, it speaks to the fact that we want every deal to go well. And we want to make sure every deal is treated with a lot of attention and care. Even the $1,800 block of 10 hours, it doesn't matter. Like we really specialize in making sure that every client gets taken care of, regardless of how big or small they are, because to you, when you bring in that client, it's important to you, and that's ultimately what's going to matter, right? So we focus on the relationship, but I look at it as we have two clients in every deal. It's the AE and it's the client, and they're both important. And technically, the relationship with the AE is like just a little bit more important. And I heard a partner once say, I got into the space because I had a friend who was in the space who ended up getting blacklisted. That's a whole other story for another time. But we're out one night at a big event we were hosting, and he said to an AA, he goes, you know what? If you think I'm an A and the client thinks I'm a C, that doesn't matter as long as you think I'm an A. And I'm like, what a shitty perspective, right? Like, so basically his message was, I could be very mediocre on delivery. As long as you think I'm really good and no one complains a lot, that's our business model. And I'm like, that's such a terrible perspective. Like, we want to be an A in both cases because the perspective that you have of us is really related to how we deliver to the client. So if we deliver a C experience, we're a C partner. That's what it comes down to. And so again, every partner can stand in front of you and say, oh, we're great at Sales Cloud and Financial Service. Like we're all good at that stuff, right? I don't know that any partners are like better at installing and setting things up than others. We all kind of do very similar things. The approach of like really being hands-on with small business clients is a differentiator because it's more about understanding their business and wanting to really make sure their technology is working together and it's working for the best of their business rather than just like, oh, I need to build you 5 reports and I need to set up some type of automation. It's more thoughtful than that. And I think that's what's really helped us in the space. So,
I think another thing that I want to add, a lot of the accounts that I inherited that were already using you as a partner gave really good feedback in regards to customer support. And whenever an issue comes up, you guys are consistently trying to, providing success and support to them. And I think that was really valuable in making a decision on in the future of, hey, I just inherited these accounts. They're giving me really good feedback. They're showing up. And I think that's super valuable in what you were just saying.
Thanks, Connor. I appreciate that. Connor, you have a question?
Yeah, quick question, Gil. This text kind of box here just reminded me, like texting features come up often in evaluations, especially with specific customers in the lending space, or some other kind of verticals. What, I guess, app exchange solution do you typically recommend to customers who are looking to solve a texting use case that can integrate well and can maybe pair well with like a Pardot and of course
Yeah.
stuff?
Good question. So we use SMS Magic. We're a partner with them. I like those guys a lot. I actually met the CEO at World Tour last year, and we've been talking together about partnering even more. But SMS Magic does all of that. And, to that question, it brings up the point of like asking a partner what they use for, right? Like we see a lot of issues with people selling digital engagement to solve a texting problem, and it doesn't because it's not made for that. Or on the marketing cloud side, selling marketing cloud texting, but that's one way and it needs a short code. There's a whole bunch of technical stuff that has to happen. So sometimes things are sold the wrong way, not because someone did it intentionally, just because they know, oh, Salesforce has 2 texting solutions. But neither, to Connor's point or question, neither solve this problem, which is I just have clients that just want to send out text through Salesforce or automated text through account engagement, Pardot. SMS Magic is the one we use for that. And 360 SMS is another good one as well.
360 SMS. Those are both on the app exchange? It
Yep,
sounds
both
like
the app exchange. Yep.
cool. Do they need dialer licenses in order to
No,
facilitate?
nope, totally separate. Yep.
Okay. And it sounds like it's pretty easy to set up.
Yeah, they handle most of the setup, those partners actually.
Gotcha. Okay. And then just last quick question for you, Gil. I know you mentioned HubSpot a number of times. I had a direct compete with them last month where they were offering like a kind of guided $300, $400 implementation, which is coming up more and more often. I know that you also implement, like HubSpot CRMs. Can you just kind of talk us through maybe like 2 or 3, bullet points that we can bring up and leverage?
I'm gonna table that one, Connor, because I'm gonna talk about that in a little bit. We'll get to that. That's important. That's a good question though. All right. So we talk about communication and how a partner communicates. To me, so you reach out to me, I share my calendar, I tell you to add me on Slack. Partners can't add you on Slack, at least from what I understand. You have to add the partner. Whenever we send an invite, you have to end up inviting them anyway. So from my understanding, you have to bring the partner or send the invitation or initiate that. But a partner should be on Slack, and that's for me the number one way to communicate. I always share my calendar whenever I have to add somebody new and have to scroll through the hundreds of other people. It kind of freaks me out a little bit that so many people have access to my calendar, but like it's good because it allows you just to book time as needed. Some people will text. I mean, it's not necessary when Slack is there, but some people prefer it, which is fine. Phone calls last. I get voicemails sometimes like, oh, hey, I have an AE on this team in this office. I'm like, what? These voicemails, like, it just seems weird to me. Happens like once or twice a month. And then I always end up forgetting to call back right away because it just seems like such a weird way to communicate now with all the other ways we can communicate faster. But voicemail and calling is okay. It just, it seems a little bit weird. But yeah, shared calendar is a big one. So this way you shouldn't have to guess when somebody's available. So, when to bring a partner into the deal. So it varies, right? That's the answer. There's no right time to bring in a partner. If your client is open to it, bring the partner in earlier is better because the partner can build some rapport and a relationship and help throughout the deal cycle. If the deal's moving really fast, bringing in a partner could actually hurt because it could slow down the process and feel like you're taking a step back. So some deals will come in after the deal's already closed, which is great because like a little more of a silver platter happens occasionally. Some deals, it's like, oh, I just got this flip, haven't even talked to the client yet, and we're there from the beginning. Either works. It really just depends on what you're trying to get out of it. And if you feel like it's more of a complex deal, there's competes, there's integrations, those are deals that bring partners in early. I'd say most common is demo. I feel like the demo call, if I was to look at my calendar, I'd say the demo call is probably the most common point if I was to average it out of where I'm running the call. So at that point, we're actually able to see firsthand what the team has talked to the client about through the demo they put together. And by listening to the client's engagement on that demo, it actually helps prepare us for scoping because we're getting a better sense of how the client sees themselves using the solution day to day. With that being said, again, there's no right or wrong time. It really just comes down to, what stage you're at and when you feel most comfortable. In some scenarios, it's like the client's stuck after they bought. So they bought, they didn't partner. We get my February is a lot of angry clients that bought in January. It's like half our business in February. It's all the people that got a great deal in January. They're all like pissed off now because they don't know how to use the product and it's been sitting there. And to the team's defense, some of these deals you're just closing because it's January. It's crazy. So you're like, I don't have time to get into a partner. I didn't even introduce a partner. I just need to get this going. Close the deal, and then February is when someone either inherits that account and they're like, I just inherited 4 CSATs, and then we come in on those, or they just call you like, hey, I'm still not up and running. But that definitely happens. You'll see it after end of quarter, after end of year, more of those we're stuck and they need some help.
I think, just from my perspective, what I've just seen be most successful, from our side is sooner the better. Right, it's just gonna make things easier, right? I think the longer you wait to intro a partner, then it's almost well, why, this person's such a key part of the account team, and why am I just meeting them now, kind of a thing. Every deal is a little bit different. I've certainly seen scenarios where clients want to get a little bit further on in a deal cycle before a partner comes in. So that'll happen sometimes, but I think, as a best practice, we should be taking the position of do what you got to do to qualify it initially. Once it's qualified, let's loop in a partner and run with it. And it's just a much more natural fit. I can think of it as just part of your account.
Go ahead. God's speaking again. I was just gonna say, I had to. I'm just gonna say, to Chet's point, to your point, Gil. I think if you're trying to be creative and you're trying to bring in the partner early, right? Think about the reverse demonstrations you guys are trying to get scheduled on the calendar. That's also a great inflection point to bring in Gil and his team, because then it gives them the firsthand understanding of what was actually done, how it was built, and they can provide the on the fly recommendations on that call. Or if we need to provide more strategy after the fact, it's hey, let's take our findings from this conversation and schedule a time to debrief with you and go through the recommendations we want to make moving forward. But it's this is another way for you to get in there. And then the other point that I'd make is bringing Gil and his team in early. They can help you shape your mutual close plan, right? Sometimes we're so attuned to try to get the deal over the line, we forget some of the necessary requirements or steps, and we may miss something where Gil and his team come in and say, hey, well, the customer said X, Y, and Z, and this actually helps play to speed up our timeline. And here's how I can position ourselves in the next call to help get this over the line, right? It goes back to that co-selling piece.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I think, to Mike and Chet's point, early is going to be better in general. Where there's an issue is again, once you get to December and January, your choices are you either grab the partner that's available, but why would you want that partner? Because if they're available in December and January, they're probably not the best. Or you may have to push out a call or two with the partner you really want. This is what we see, at least. And you can tell me if you're seeing it across the board, but I feel there are lots of deals in December and January. Everybody's calendars are so busy that it's hard to maybe always get the resource you want, but you also want to slow down the deal. So your choices are, like I said, either bring in the partner you haven't worked with or aren't really sure about, or wait one more call to bring in the partner you really want. It's tough in that time of year when things are moving so fast. But for us, I know, even if we have other resources on calls, calendars fill up that time of year. And there are literally a good 4 to 6 weeks straight where personally I'm on 16 to 18 calls a day. And sometimes it's 2 to 3 at once. And I have devices lined up where I listen to my name. It's fucking awful, dude. It is so uncomfortable, but you do it to get through it. But the reality is, as you get to busy season, if you're torn between a partner that's available, maybe not the best choice because they probably shouldn't be open, with their calendar that time of year. But yeah, you may have to push out a call, and say, you know what, I wanted to bring you in on this call, but let me take some notes. I'll ask some questions, then I'll bring you in on the next one. Should make this one. Like I said, something you'll see more at the year. So as far as complexity, this is important, I think, just because of the space you're in and the types of clients you work with. I'm not going to talk about HubSpot here yet. I think I have another slide where I'll talk more about the compete there, but it's like if they're on spreadsheets and they're on Outlook, easy migration, right? Importing spreadsheets, moving data from Outlook out of it. If they're on a smaller CRM or a more common CRM, your HubSpots, your Pipedrives, your Zohos, pretty like not super simple, but not difficult. It's just more time consuming. But there's no complexity to it that a partner would struggle with. But then you get to like the industry specific tools or the older, so red tails, injunctions, and backstops, which are industry specific platforms, or like an Act or a Goldmine, which are really old systems. Those are much more difficult implementations or migrations. So what happens is you'll have a deal, sounds like a quick start because what the client's asking for is simple. You'll tell the client, you're going to qualify for a quick start. I'm going to bring in a partner. And then we get in, it's like we're kind of in an awkward spot because we're kind of the bad guy coming in saying like, you're on Act. That could be $4,000. It could be $14,000. Like we really have to evaluate it more. So just going in that when partners tell you that there's difficulty with some of these systems, there really is. Some of these systems are very hard to get data from. They're much more challenging to migrate from. So just always keep that in mind. So even though the use case may seem simple, migrating their data or migrating documents and files may be a lot more complex. And then the other is integrations. So when you're talking to a client, if they're looking to integrate with other systems, if there's not an app on the App Exchange, it could be more difficult. I've had numerous clients come back and say, oh, I was told Salesforce has open API and my other system has open API. I just need them to connect. And that's not how it works. So open API just gives you the ability to connect systems, but there's no code written, there's no connection written. So a partner actually has to write all the code to connect both systems, authenticate both systems, pass the data, handle security, handle scenarios like if it exists, update versus creating records. So when we talk about integrations, always make sure there's something pre-built, and if there's not, even though the system may say open API, all it means is you're able to connect. It's still going to be a much more expensive connection.
Yeah, what's the cost? I mean, I'm sure it varies, but.
So I like to give a ballpark of when you're talking API connection, you're going to start at 4 to 6K, no matter how simple it is. There's nothing less than that, right? So if you just had a system you need to pull a couple of values from, you're going to be at least 4K just to build the connection, authenticate the permissions between the systems, grab the data you need and bring it over. That's probably at least 4K to start. Most API integrations are probably like from our standpoint are like 8 to 12K is a fair range. Some partners are doing 100K, integration projects. And then sometimes there's a middleware. As you say, you had QuickBooks, you can use, there's middleware for that. So you don't have to build the API, but there's licensing costs to buy the middleware. So there's always other options, but API is always going to be more expensive than just any type of like native connection.
I have a bunch of API questions, but.
Yeah, we can talk about those offline too, but definitely something we see a lot. So we talk about types of competes, and this is where I will talk about HubSpot a little bit more. Connor's point earlier. So no current tech, then the resistance is I'm not using technology, right? So we're up against. I had one today. Client, very old business. Their website was last updated in 2003, and the guy actually one of the guys was like Larry David, but he wasn't funny, so I was really disappointed. So they have no technology. They're spreadsheets, Word documents, and QuickBooks. They have a sales team. They're a manufacturer's rep. And the whole time they just keep saying they don't understand what CRM is going to do for them. So we're up against the challenge of they have really no technology and they don't even understand technology. That's a barrier to overcome in some cases. Then you have your industry, non-industry solutions, the HubSpots of the world, the Mondays, the Pipedrives, the Zohos. Where you're going to compete there is tools like Monday, Pipedrive, and Zoho are much smaller CRMs. Pipedrive is more of a sales pipeline tool. It's not even a real CRM to me. Monday is more of a project management tool. Again, not a real CRM to me. Zoho is a real CRM, but low cost, kind of a small business. They have no onshore support. They have no onshore sales staff. Clients complain constantly about the poor levels of support that they get when there's an issue at all. And again, it's not a full suite of products. They do have other products in their ecosystem, but it's not as scalable. HubSpot to me is always the biggest competitor. they're always going to be competitive on price. And the way I position it is if you're a CRM serious or CRM first customer, HubSpot was giving CRM away. It was a free product. It's not their core product. Their core product was marketing. So the first conversation is if you're serious about CRM, then HubSpot has not invested in the CRM what Salesforce has. It's just not as serious of a player in that space. The other thing is their partner ecosystem benefits directly from the contract. So as a partner, if I implement HubSpot, I get paid by HubSpot for that, which is like a nice bonus, but it also kind of clouds the relationship a little bit because there's more of a vested interest there as a partner. When it's a marketing compete, it's a little bit harder. So if a client comes in with no technology and they want marketing product, CRM's not important, that's when you have a hard time competing. When they want CRM with it, or they're already on Salesforce CRM and want to add marketing, to me, those are no-brainers. Salesforce should win out every time. We have a whole one sheet on the marketing side of why you'd want to choose Salesforce over HubSpot. But again, the partner ecosystem is very different there, and they are getting paid out those deals. And then industry specific, like Redtail is old and outdated. You know, Deal Cloud is really only for like PE firms and not customizable. Jungo's an OEM that's an overlay on Salesforce for lenders, but it's not as scalable. So like for us, you have to know, and this is why I said earlier about being in the hardest position, in my opinion. It's like you have to know every sub-vertical, all the competing products in those sub-verticals to really be able to have some of these conversations with clients. And that's something that we're super comfortable having. Any questions on this or thoughts? I know we're going through this a little faster now. I know we're ran over because of technical issues. So evaluating a partner SOW. So we've seen a lot of partner SOWs. I think making sure that you're comfortable with what's being presented to the client. I always send my SOWs to the AEs first. I never send an SOW directly to the client without getting blessing from an AE. And the idea is that I want you to look through it. It doesn't mean you do, and you probably just look at the price, which is fine. But the reality is there are things you should look for because you want to make sure your client is getting what they asked for. So if I present an SOW and it's missing the integrations that were important, that's a huge red flag, right? Because now the client's going to sign on for something and bill later. So we had a client recently who, and it wasn't with the team here, but we included integrations in the SOW. The AE pushed back and said, this is too expensive for the client. So we took the integrations out. We had the pricing call and we said on the call, this does not include the integrations. It was recorded. So we record all our calls. And a month into implementation, the client came back and said, oh, where are these integrations? These were supposed to be included. Like, what's the holdup on this? And we brought up the recording and we're like, we talked about this in the call. They were not included. And then the AE was like, just do them for free. I'll give you more deals. Like, this is not the relationship that any of us want. It's just not what's in the best interest of the client or in the relationship, right? They were just looking at it as a transaction. They need to get a deal done. So it really created friction between us and the AE. I actually reached out to the RVP because I'm like, look, like, this isn't how you run a deal. You don't tell someone to take it out, confirm it was taken out with the client, and then when the client comes back asking for it, tell us we should just give it to them for free. It was like $6,000 of work. So point being, just look into these things, even if it's high level. If you don't understand the SOW, your client won't, because your client knows much less about the stuff than you do. So you want to look at, you know, the timelines, the cost. Is it a fixed cost? Is there a risk that it could double in cost? You know, what do training and support look like post-implementation? Are there going to be dedicated resources to the client? Make sure you know this as you get an SOW from your partners, because it is going to be important to make sure that you sell that value to your clients as well and really understand what it is that they're signing off on. All right, so if you haven't seen this yet, you will. Not the movie, but the partner killing your deal. This happens pretty often. So scenario where partners involved, multiple calls, comes back with an SOW, shocks everybody. and now the deal's like dead. So then the AE reaches out to other partners and says, hey, what can you do? Like, can you do better? To me, it's tough because the partner's already invested a lot of time. Two things I would always do up front in this situation. One, if it's a project that seems like it's going to be expensive, you should have a sense of price before you present pricing. There should never be a shock on a pricing call or right before you're presenting pricing. That's going to kill the deal. This is partially on you, on the account team. You need to know, is this a $3,000 project or a $23,000 project? You should get a sense of that prior to pricing. Now, you may have a sense of that, but you don't know that the client isn't going to be comfortable with that. That's different. And that happens. In those scenarios, you want to look at what can be cut out to make a more successful phase one. So position it as, or especially as a partner, if your budget is half of that, we can just reduce some of the deliverables to get where you want to be. That's definitely worth having a conversation on. There are then scenarios where the client comes back and says, no, I need all of this, my budget is X. So then you may have to shop at other partners. You're not supposed to share partner SOWs. I think, Mike, that's probably not encouraged, but it happens. I won't say it happens because you're not supposed to do it, but it does happen. So it makes it easier because, and again, not that you're supposed to do this, but if you're bringing another partner in a deal and they don't have all that background information, and then you're asking them for a price, it's hard, right? So if there's some frame of reference that like, here are the deliverables that we're supposed to give the client, here's the cost, it is helpful. Again, I know it's frowned upon, but it does make it easier if you're going to bring in another partner. Not that I would want somebody even sharing my SOW, but if that's what it takes, then I mean, it's what you need to do. The alternative is you have to bring in a new partner and go through scoping all over again, which clients get kind of frustrated with that. They don't love that idea. So again, just make sure as you go through, you've exhausted all options, reducing what a phase one could look like, kind of cutting out deliverables. Communication sometimes is the issue. So sometimes partners just disappear and you kind of give them a last shot. Hey, if I don't hear back from you, I gotta move on to someone else. And that definitely happens. And then unclear SOW can kill a deal. I don't really know what I'm getting for my money. That's a partner shop to make sure that they're explaining. I'm okay with hearing it. I just have a slide or two left. So communication, it's another area we see some issues. So we had a recent scenario where the AE wanted updates. So it was LPL integration. I don't know if any of you dealt with these yet, but LPL sucks and their app sucks and it only works half the time. And there's always issues. So the client was frustrated with the way the app was working. There were a lot of issues with the app and we were the partner on the deal. So we're kind of lumped into the frustration. And the AE sent emails with us and the client saying, why isn't this working yet? What are next steps? But it was with everybody on the email exchange. That instantly separates the partnership of us and the account team, right? If we're working as true partners, you're going to reach out to our team directly or any partner and say, hey guys, what do we need to do to get this working? Client's frustrated. What can I do to help? When you do something like email and say, hey, why isn't this working? Why isn't this done? Why didn't we have a call today? And everybody's on the email. You're basically taking the position that the client's not doing their job, the partner's not doing their job, and the client should be frustrated with the partner and that you're not offering help. You're actually just kind of feeding the fire of the client's frustration. So it's always best to talk to the partner and say, hey, what's up with this? What can I do to help? Where are the challenges? Where are the roadblocks? There are scenarios where there is something blocking things from working right. It's not anything the partner can deal with. And in an LPL situation, that's exactly what it was. But you really want to be aligned with your partners and make sure that you're working collaboratively with them. You also want to make sure that, if you're going to check in with the client, check in with the partner first just to see where things are at, because it's always best to get some background and context. So actually one of the things Maggie's done a lot with is like, someone reached out to me and then she'll look at all the background information. Say, okay, here's where we're at. Here are the last 3 check-ins. Here's what next steps are. So we can provide that information back. So it's good to have that context before you reach out to a client, just to know where things are at in the process. And then how to deal with the CSAT. So there are going to be situations where clients are frustrated. Don't assume it's one person's fault or the other. Again, I always think the partner is probably right most of the time because I know what it's like to be a partner. So we've had other partners thrown under the bus and I'm like, it's probably not even them. But just get all the information. So get the partners' information that they share, get the client's information, if there's other parties involved, pull all that together first. Work with the partner, understand the challenges, but then the path to success, right? So how do we go from here's the issue to resolving the issue? What's the timeline? What are the steps? So work through that and lead the charge there, even though, again, you're kind of working in the middle, help to take the initiative to kind of lead that conversation and then facilitate that conversation between the client and the partner. If maybe sometimes there's like a broken relationship, try to facilitate that, make sure that, we have check-ins scheduled. So be part of the solution on a CSAT issue. Sometimes it's purely a licensing issue. Client's not paying, client just doesn't like something about Salesforce. That's something that technically the partner may not be involved with at all. But when it comes to CSAT specifically because of implementation, which will happen, just be part of that solution. Again, bring the parties together, put a plan in place. Don't just brush it off as like it's the partner's problem or the client's problem. Be part of that solution. Definitely makes a big difference, and it shows your clients that you care. And then the last slide, then I'll take some questions. But so quick tips for partner success, and a lot of this we touched upon, but prep your partner as much as possible, right? So make sure they have notes, especially recordings, past demos, anything that you can share with them. Make sure they have that prior to any calls you're going to have. Allow the partner to provide a proper introduction, right? So I've been on calls where people are like, oh, I forgot to introduce you, or you're on the slide or whatever. Add the partner to your slides, let them introduce themselves, give them the time to add some credibility to the conversation, especially because there have been calls I wasn't introduced on, and then I have to speak up because no one had the answer to something, and then it's like, it's like God speaking again. Where's this random voice coming from that's answering all these questions? Like, we're not even introduced. So make sure you give the partner the time to introduce themselves. Try to fit in a scoping session if possible. Again, year end, we get very few scoping sessions. It's like, listen to what you can, give me an SOW. That's okay, but when it's not as busy, try to fit in dedicated scoping sessions, specifically for implementation. Try to avoid providing cost to the client of what you think it's going to cost. I had an issue recently out of this office, someone that's not here now, but kept promising this $2,000 quick start, and the client was using a really old, difficult system to migrate from. And we're like, look, I know you were told that, but I can't just give that to you. We didn't quote you that. Someone else did, and that person's not here anymore. So, like, we can find ways to work together to make it work, but now, like, they were frustrated because they were given a $2,000 cost, not from us, but from someone that was here. Giving ranges is okay, but there's an assumption that everything's a quick start, and it's very frustrating as a partner because not everything's a quick start. There are a lot of quick starts, but there's definitely a lot of scenarios where things are not a quick start, which actually was 0.5 anyway, so I'm glad that I put that up there. Try to obviously pick the right partner from the start. It seems like common sense, but do your due diligence and make sure you're comfortable with the partner. And then develop deeper relationships. So it's not a transaction. It's like, when I come in and see all the team, it's like I have a relationship with these people. We're close. I mean, I feel like I have a much deeper relationship than just someone that's like helping to close a deal here and there. Like I've been around some of these guys and girls for 5, 6, 7 years in some cases, right? So like develop that relationship. It's not just about sometimes it is about the transaction, but like you're playing the big picture. It's really not. It's about building the relationships that are going to help you close those. I think that's my last slide. Again, sorry we had technical issues, and that check didn't let me in, so that I wasn't here right at 2 o'clock. But was this helpful?
Yes.
Yeah, it was super helpful. Thank you so much, Gil.
Thanks, Abby. Anything I left out, or any questions or points anybody wants to make?
I would just say for the new guys, I can give my personal attestation for Gil and Annabella at IMG. They're both really wonderful. I've never had a customer attrit due to working with them. I've only had successful implementations through IMG. So really recommend them.
Thanks, Abby.
Of course.